let's talk first about the on-field stuff, which again, just to set expectations correct. Same thing we've been talking about the last couple of days. I mean, you're not going to win, or this type of prospect is not going to win or lose his pro day really based on what's being done on the field. But that being said, it's still nice to be able to see him in person, get an idea of how that ball comes out of his hand. And the word I would use is smooth. Like it comes out easy. The ball pops out of that hand very, very easily. You see that natural talent. It's undeniable. And then in terms of the accuracy, I believe the number was 50. I think the script called for 50 throws. 4 of them hit the ground. All 4 of them were deep balls. One of them was definitely a drop. Maybe 1 or 2 of the other ones could have maybe been, if the route's a little bit better, been completed. But regardless, like that's still a really good completion percentage, as it should be. You know, they're running around, running routes without a defense, and it's all scripted. But everything short, over the middle, those intermediate, out-ins, whatever, right on the money for the most part. So, I mean, he passed all that part of the test if he even needed to, which I don't really think he had to. What I thought was part of what I was doing, because Nick was also here, we're going to hear from Nick in a little bit, and he was really keyed in on sort of filming all the throws. I was trying to keep my eyes on a lot of what Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles were doing during it. And here's one of my biggest observations. Not that this is a surprise, but they were here to see Caleb Williams. The rest of the pro day, while the offensive linemen were working out or the testing was going on, because remember, they run 40s and they run the short shuttles and all that type of stuff here, just like they do at the combine. While all that was going on, Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Matt Eberflus, they were all just having conversations with people. I mean, that was, if you've seen the videos of Poles shaking hands with Carl Williams or Matt Eberflus talking to Carl Williams, that was actually towards the end of the whole day. But the point is, they weren't even really paying attention to the rest of the pro day until Caleb Williams got up there and started throwing. And then to kind of set the scene on what that was all like, Poles and Eberflus stood behind him, like kind of directly behind where the quarterback was throwing. And actually, Lincoln Riley, USC's head coach, came over and talked to them for a big portion of the throwing session. Meanwhile, Shane Waldron was off to the sideline, and I think Thomas Brown was over there too. Ian Cunningham kind of stayed in the corner where he had been for most of the day. So they sort of had the whole field surrounded and represented with the big contingent that they brought down here. And there didn't seem to be much of a worry. Honestly, we were probably focused more in on how it all looked than maybe they even were. And meanwhile, Caleb Williams was walking right there on the other side of this camera that you can't see right now.
Tell him to come on.
He's still walking around campus.
Caleb. You can make history and be on the CHGO Bears podcast, unlike the last quarterback who we still love but never came on. Maybe we can get Caleb on here.
So, yeah, obviously, you know, I thought one of the things that stood out to me watching the NFL Plus live stream, Daniel Jeremiah said, you know, he's passed the dunk contest already, but I want to see him hit the free throws. And so by what you're saying there in your first statement, you felt like he accomplished that goal?
Yeah, and honestly, every throw, with the exception of some of these like 50-yarders, straight goes down the field. Even against no defense, those aren't always easy to complete. Those were the only ones he missed. So yeah, if we're calling all the rest of those free throws, I would agree. And it's not just, you know, completing it, but it's also being accurate with those throws. You know, there was only 2 throws that were completions that I thought were maybe even just a little bit off the mark. One, Taj Washington went down and made a really nice catch along the sidelines where he kind of had to reach down for it. Another one was just slightly high. It was kind of a deep crosser, and not necessarily a bad throw by any means, but Brendan Rice had to go up a little bit and catch it up above his head. But it was a really nice snag. Actually, you know, for Brendan Rice's day, the son of Jerry Rice, one of the wide receivers out here, that was probably his highlight of the entire day, if not the other go that those two hooked up on, which was like probably at least a 50, 55, maybe even 60-yard throw. It's kind of hard to tell from my vantage point, but I think we have the video up on CHGO Bears on our Twitter account.
That throw was when I did realize that the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I think we're about to play it right now. Do we have this, Steven? We're going to run it?
We have a compilation here of all of his deep throws.
Yeah. You can just see how easy it comes out of his hand.
Yeah, that wasn't the exact one I was talking about, but that
this is the one.
Yeah, and even this one, I'm not even sure it was part of the script.
Actually, that wasn't it. Yep.
No, I'll tell you when it's the one. But yeah, I think this was the one, the Brendan Rice that you know, if we watch it again, we can get the exact yardage on it maybe. But the point is,
well, I think Weeder said 67 yards. He counted 67 yards in the air. That seems about right.
Okay. The point is that I'm not sure that was part of the script, because he kind of, right before the throw, he kind of said something to Brendan Rice, and it was like, I don't know, just go. And then it seemed like it was just like, let's see how far we can throw this and complete it for fun. And that was another one of my observations, was like, I've been to some pro days, and there's probably more anxiety involved with them than there even should be, quite frankly. And yes, it's a big moment. Like, these guys are all going through a long job interview here, and you don't want to screw it up. You want to get everything right. I felt like Caleb's demeanor today was just that confidence, almost borderline cockiness, that actually I love to see from players sometimes, where it's just like, yeah, this is not a big deal. I'm just going to go out here and throw the football around with my friends for, 20 minutes while the entire NFL world watches, whether they're here in person or on TV. And I didn't sense any pressure really from him. And I think that's kind of his personality, even when he talks to the media as well.
So Keenan Allen shows up there, and one of the quotes that we pulled, it's on our Twitter account. We're going to put it on the screen here, I believe.
Actually, I'm having trouble getting it on the screen right now.
It doesn't matter. Let me just read it out here. It says, he's talking about, this is Caleb talking about Keenan and Hoge. You tell me if I'm going too far here. But he writes, I've known Keenan for a little bit now, hung out. He was at the Chargers. Now he's at the Bears. He's here for a 4th-round pick, which is crazy. He's a beast, good guy, and he can give you a lot of knowledge. Jay Zawoski rolled me over before. He's like, he's here. And the way he's hearing he's here is that Caleb knows that he's here with me with the Bears, as in this is done. Can we just it's done, right? It's done. This is done. He's here.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about this, guys. I mean, unless it's something catastrophic happens between now and the draft, whether we don't need to go into what those situations could be, but something totally unforeseen and not very likely to happen at all, especially with the infrastructure that Caleb Williams has in place. So, yeah, and I sensed that a little bit too. Even in that, I think he went on to say in that answer too that was like, I think he even referred to him as somebody I might potentially be teammates with. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if that was the exact quote, but he went down that road, which is not a surprise. And the other things he had to say about the Bears, because the Bears flew here on Monday. I'm not exactly sure the specifics on if they were with them Monday. I know that there was definitely, I think, a dinner, whether it was yesterday or Monday night, but they've definitely spent some time together here in Los Angeles, which is why they came out so early. And the interesting thing was the way that question was asked was like kind of, what have you learned about the Bears? Which is something I wanted to ask him too. Coming down here was on my list. It's like, yeah, these teams come down here to learn about you, but what have you learned about the Bears? And he kind of spun it back around. He's like, well, this is more about them learning about me. Like, they're going to invest a ton of money in whoever they pick at number 1, and they want to make sure I'm the right guy. So I think that should calm down, any lingering, sort of fake worry that he's not going to come to Chicago or something like that. I mean, I think most of that's been dispelled to this point and will continue to be. The only thing that, and we have this clip, I think, ready to go. The only thing that I thought was a little odd was he was asked by Pat Finley from the Sun-Times, when his visit to Hallis Hall is going to be. And this was his answer.
I don't know yet. I wanted to come out here, put on a show, but also I've been working on mainly training and training for this next step. It's only about 30 days out until possibly cooking, and so been working on that. Been working on actually preparing for actual season and not necessarily here for maybe draft day or anything like that.
So what's your reading of that, Hoge?
I mean, kind of what his answer was. I don't know. Here's one thing, and I'm already working to hopefully get some clarification on this, because it does matter. I mean, it does matter that he takes a visit to Hallis Hall. I mean, for no other reason. The whole reason for not doing his medicals at the combine was he was saying he would do the medicals when he visits these teams. Of course, there was the bit that Albert Breer had that, the Bears wanted him to come in earlier. He declined for now, but that was sort of what his answer was there, right? Like, I was preparing for the pro day, which is the next step. And by the way, that's relatively typical. You get done with the combine, the next step's the pro days, and then after the pro days, you worry about those 30 visits. That's not abnormal. I want to make that clear. But it was still just like, I've been more worried about this and not worried about that. And he didn't really confirm if he was even going to visit Hallis. And I actually, at the very end, here's the other part about this, was a little weird today. The press conference kind of abruptly ended, not like in any way that was any type of animosity, but the last question he answered was from a guy right next to me as I was trying to get a question in about are you visiting Hallis Hall? And the guy next to me was obviously a USC reporter or somebody that he knew. And he's like, I'm going to take his question first. He answered it, and it was all about like the future of USC and why recruits should come here. It's sunny out and all this. And then he was just like, fight on. And he walked away. And I was like, okay. Because it's not like USC tried to end the press conference. He just kind of ended it. So it just kind of left these lingering questions about the next step for what the Bears and Caleb Williams, which is obviously this 30 visit, when that's going to happen. Maybe even if that's going to happen. I mean, until we know for sure, that's just sort of the only lingering piece still left in all this. But again, I mean, I don't think that ends up changing the outcome in this in any way.
Adam, give me top takeaways as you just kind of digest everything that happened today. We saw the arm strike. We saw the relaxed demeanor. We saw how he handled the media. We saw a lot of handshakes and hugs with Flus and Keenan Allen and Ryan Poles. I just kind of underlined all of that. But what else from being there that are your main takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, the Keenan Allen side of him showing up here is interesting. I mean, one, look, he lives here, not that big of a deal. It's not like he flew across the country to come here. But I, off the top of my head, I've been a lot of these pro days. I can't remember a current. I mean, there's plenty of former players. Like today, I could tell you Josh McCown. Obviously, he's on a coaching staff now, but Mark Sanchez was here. Matt Leinart was here, right? A lot of former USC guys like that. So there's plenty of former players that show up. I can't remember a current NFL player, potential teammate. Right. Certainly, I mean, that's part of this too. Like he's their biggest acquisition they traded for last week to add to help Caleb Williams shows up at the pro day. Like, I don't care if the guy lives here in LA. That's super interesting.
Yep.
And he was he was around Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham and Matty Reflus the whole time for the most part. By the way, everyone was asking on Twitter who the person was with the death row jacket on. That apparently is Keenan Allen's agent. So I was told that.
If she'd like to represent me, I'm in.
Yeah, I just I don't know what it really means, but it's like clearly it got the attention of Caleb. Caleb noticed it. He knows Keenan Allen, and it's not nothing. Let's say that. I mean, it's not nothing. I don't know if he did it on his own. I don't know if the Bears asked him to come, but it's pretty cool that he was there regardless of how it all came together.
Yeah, that was definitely my biggest takeaway as well for a current player and a player of this magnitude to be drafted. It's definitely a sign. And then for Caleb to say, I've known this guy for a year and we're friendly, and him to come there, it made me go back to when Caleb said at the combine, what about teams that want you? Well, do you want to win? And the Bears bring in a guy that he's already familiar with, and now this guy shows up at his pro day. You know, I'm connecting a few dots here, but to me, like watching those guys together, it was like, okay, send the card in. This dude's getting drafted today. And I know we've felt that way for a long time, but to see things in the moment, the visualization, to see some of this stuff come to fruition is exciting as a Bears fan.
Did you shake his hand, Hoge?
Whose hand?
Caleb Williams.
No.
Well, I have a reason. I have a reason why I'm asking that, but I have a reason why I'm asking. His hand size, 9 7/8 inches. Okay, that's a big hand, dude. Patrick Mahomes' hand is 9 1/4. By the way, hand size matters. It does. You want to be able to control the damn thing. It's a part. It's a characteristic. Yes. You can get by with lesser hands. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is doing fine at 9 1/4.
Ask Joe Burrow if hand size matters. If we're going to talk about shaking hands, okay, if you want to go down that road, let's talk about the handshakes that maybe mattered the most today. And that was Ryan Poles being taken over to Carl Williams, Caleb's father. They had a brief conversation. There was a handshake. We put that out there on at @CHGO_Bears on Twitter. And then at the end of the throwing session, when it was all over, Matt Eberflus made a point of going over there too to say hi. Now, this is just more of my two observations from this. When Ryan Poles went over there, it looked like they were being introduced to each other, which I thought was very interesting. It did not look like two people that, have had a ton of conversations together. Maybe they've talked before, and that's the first time they've ever talked in person. I don't know. But he was literally, someone brought him over to Carl Williams. Now, when Matt went there later, it was more on his own. And then they had about a 45 to 50-second conversation before Eberflus left. Part of why I think this is worth bringing up, though, because this is from my own reporting in the story I wrote about Caleb Williams back at Super Bowl week. Every source I've talked to, every coach I've talked to, when I ask about Carl, it is he stays out of the way. He's the business guy. He does have a lot of interest in his son, but he stays out of the way. I thought it was super noticeable and confirming that reporting that while Caleb had guys on the field with him, I'm not exactly sure who the one guy is, but he's clearly like a manager or something that's always kind of there, and he was there in Indy too. Might have been the guy that Sylvie confused for Carl Williams at the combine. He's on the field. He's talking to Flus, he's talking to Poles and all that, but Carl was just in the stands, kind of out of the way. In the front of the stands, but out of the way, clearly not trying to bring attention to himself, not trying to be in the middle of the pro day or anything, to the point that those guys had to actually walk over to the stands to say hi to him. I think that's worth bringing up.
It is a good underlining. And it again, to your reporting and to what we've read, is that, look, he's about the business, but he's not about talking to coaches. He's not about trying to influence what plays are being called. He's not that dude. I want to stick more just a little bit on just the actual physical appearance here. 6 feet 7 8 inches, 217 pounds. Is that what he looked like to you, Hoge? Was he? You're a tall Hoge. Was he eye level for you?
He's shrunk. He's shrunk since the combine. Like, how concerned are we that he's going to be as tall as Muggsy Bogues by the time the regular season starts? This is scary.
Yeah, it's a big problem. It's a big controversy. I've never seen a quarterback prospect like this shrink. No, okay. Here's how this works. Not that I'm a doctor, but anybody who's been in a chiropractor. So when I go to the chiropractor, and you guys know I have to go quite a bit, I have this right hip problem, okay? And when they put it back in place, my right leg literally adjusts by 2 inches. That's a real thing, okay? So the way our human bodies work, how can you weigh in and one day a quarter inch higher than, a few weeks later at your pro day? That's why. It's because of our spines. It's definitely not a big deal. So let's just dispel that right away.
You just made me more nervous that the guy's going to the chiropractor all the time. Did he look tall? Was he a big guy in front of you?
No. I did not say that he goes to the chiropractor. You didn't listen to what I said. I said I go to the chiropractor. Maybe he should have gone to the chiropractor last night. Had he gotten an adjustment, he might have been taller. He might have been a quarter inch taller than when he weighed in Indianapolis.
There's just that there's the occasional chat in here and the occasional tweet. He's short. He's not tall enough.
Well, how tall are you, Hoge?
I'm a little over 6'2".
Okay, so standing next to him, just like Carm said, just as far, you've been around a lot of quarterbacks, right?
I'm a little bit taller than him. He's also 40 pounds heavier than me. He's built. He's built, and it's muscle. It's not Taco Bell brags.
No, yeah.
He watch his film. He's not as tall as Justin Fields. He shakes off tacklers the same way. He slips out of tackles that Bryce Young certainly doesn't. This is not a problem. His height will it potentially lead to a couple balls batted down here and there? Maybe, but this is not a player who's small. It's not a small quarterback. That is not an accurate way to describe him at all. I mean, ideally, if you built all these guys in a lab, you want them to be 6'4"? Yeah, sure, but they're not all that way. Isn't Aaron Rodgers is 6'2", like maybe an inch taller than Caleb Williams? Obviously, Drew Brees was closer to 6 feet. Like Russell Wilson's shorter than right around Drew Brees' height. It's just if you can play the position, it just doesn't matter. What I care more about is how strong are you? And how elusive are you to create throwing windows and avoid sacks? And this guy can create them with his feet and with his arm angles, because he can throw from many different arm angles to find open throwing lanes. And it's not a problem on his film at all.
All right. There's some great comments there. Pretty soon he's going to be a Smurf is in there. He's tall enough. He's strong enough. I got to tell you, my first reaction just looking at him physically was like, those biceps are real. The dude's ripped.
Yeah.
And that ball's coming out. He's flinging it 65, 66, 67 yards that we played. He's handling the media. We're going to talk to Nicholas Moriano coming up in a minute. Hoge, anything else before you go?
No, just kind of that last point. That the box I like to check is just how that ball comes out of his hands. It's just different seeing it in person than on film, and it was just so easy. It was just so smooth. It was what I expected, but it was impressive. Definitely impressive.
So, Hoge, you wanted to come back in here. You got news. What have you been doing the last 20 minutes, or what have you find out that you're going to relay to our 4,000 people that are watching? Hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Monday through Friday at noon. Pre and post all season long. Breaking news. We're here for you. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. And we could get those likes up over 1,000. That'd be great as well. What do you got, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it's not breaking news or anything, but just a little bit more clarification that I mentioned earlier. I was trying to get on that answer that Caleb Williams gave about not knowing when the 30 visit was going to be to Hallis Hall. And just my understanding is that the visit's still expected to happen. I want to make that clear. I think the one thing to realize with Caleb Williams is just this is not a normal prospect that you typically deal with, and it's not any fault of his own. I said this last week, he's already a superstar. When he got taken, I don't want to say taken out of the stadium today, but it kind of felt like that, because as he's leaving this track and field stadium where they had the pro day today, there must have been, Nick, 12 security guards by him, surrounding him out of here. Like, it reminded me of the time I saw Shaq walking down the boardwalk at Disney World one time. And not every prospect, not any other prospect in this draft is really dealing with that type of thing. So he's got a big group that's working with him, I think, with scheduling a lot of different things. And there's dates still out there, is my understanding. They're going to figure it out. That's just why he didn't know off the top of his head when the visit to Hallis Hall was actually going to be.
We all silly like the mayor.